Hey, I'm Billy Morrison, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Billy Morrison from the Billy Idol Band,
formerly of The Cult
and Circus Diablo.
He's also a painter extraordinaire, artist.
Yeah.
Promoting his new project.
Yeah, he's got a new album, The Morrison Project.
Yeah, this is his fourth solo endeavor.
Yeah.
So
it's got a lot of star-studded guests, but don't just tune in for that. Check out his songs too. They're great.
Absolutely. Let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Billy, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Billy, thanks for joining us tonight.
No, thank you both for having me and supporting the whole thing.
Oh, man, we're so excited to have you. Yeah. I know I've reached out to you a couple times in the past, and you're just unable to do it. So we finally got you. I'm kind of trying to pinch myself saying, is this really happening tonight?
Oh, it's really happening. I'm a busy man on many levels.
Yes.
And so sometimes I'm just unable to do stuff that I do want to do. So finally, Nothing Shocking.
Very good. So, hey, let's get right into it here. You have just released your third solo album, The Morrison Project. Can you give our listeners an insight to this latest endeavor?
Well, the main thing about the whole thing is I didn't know I was even making an album. all I was doing, and I definitely don't have, this crazy mad plan to have a solo career. I was just doing what every creative does in COVID, which is make some music. I have a studio in my house, and we were all locked up for a couple of years. So, of course, I was making music and had a couple of friends over, and we were just messing around. So 3 years later, to have an album that is clearly doing great, I've got, top 10 Billboard songs and all this kind of crazy shit. That was not by design at all.
Very good.
Just want to talk about, you got quite a few guests on there. Did you talk a little bit about how you got some of those guys to play with you?
Sure. I mean, look, so first of all the guests on the album are friends, first and foremost. I did not go through any managers or agents or anyone. They're all people that are in my phone and that I can text and say, hey, I'm doing this. What do you think? And the other thing to say about the guests is, again, I didn't sit down and plan how many famous people can I get on this record?
Yeah.
What I had a bunch of songs, and I sang on the ones that I sing on because the song felt right for me. And then you reach stuff like Chasing Shadows, which is a piano ballad, and the world does not need to hear me singing a piano ballad. You know, I do Angry Boy quite well. But other than that, and so I was trying to serve the song. Does that make sense? I have the music, and I'm like, the world doesn't want to hear me sing this. What they want to hear is Linda Perry sing this, or Al Jurgensen. I mean, look, a couple of the songs were no-brainers. The one that Al sings was originally a Ministry riff that I'd written for Ministry for an album, because I've written songs for Ministry, and that was one that didn't make the album, and it was just sitting around. So, of course, Al makes sense to sing that. And the Ozzy one is clearly, if you take the vocal out, it's clearly still an Ozzy Osbourne song. Me and Steve wrote the riff. Well, it would be crazy for me to sing that. It's obviously an Ozzy song. So the guests appeared just because the songs dictated that they were necessary.
Yeah, very good. You know, considering your last solo endeavor was released in 2015, when it came to songwriting, how many of the songs had you been holding on to for, I guess, maybe years, or was this strictly a songwriting during the pandemic?
It was strictly songwriting during the pandemic, and not even songs. When you have, you know, the modern studios that all the musicians we all have in our house, they're computer based. So you can dial up some EDM sounds real easy, and you can throw a hip hop beat down, and you can do 60 seconds building up a groove that wouldn't sound out of place on a Public Enemy album or something like that. And then you can save it and go away. And so a lot of this album started life as literally 60-second bits of music that I'd written, that I did with Geordie and Eric. And then obviously at some point it became obvious I was actually going to put all this together. And I went back to those songs, 2-minute segments, 1-minute segments, and I made it all cohesive.
Very good.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of my favorite songs is actually not one of the ones with a guest. It's one that you sing on. It's Come to This. Can you talk a little bit about that song? And there's a video that goes along with that with you in a pretty cool car in the desert. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, you say all the right things because you have no idea. Obviously, you put an album out with a song with Ozzy Osbourne on it, and everyone wants to talk about the Ozzy song. Yeah. And that's obvious. And I'm not under any illusions that was going to happen. However, when people say, oh, my favorite song is It's Come to This or Dystopia or whatever, you know, it makes me smile because that's me singing it. And that was a fantasy. Towards the end of COVID, I was, you know, I have a nice house and I have some nice possessions. And it was just getting reinforced that none of the nice possessions or money in the bank or jewelry around your neck, none of it matters when you're locked up and away from human contact. And there had to be more to it than that. Even though I'd already learned that lesson 30 years ago, you know, it started becoming a fantasy. I'm going to leave everything in the house. I'm going to walk away from my life. I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to drive into the desert looking for a deeper meaning of life, if you like.
Very good. Well, you know, you talked about, you know, technology at home, and Jeff and I have been doing this for a long time now, and we've spoke to many artists about recording new music. You know, today you don't have to get into a proper studio any longer. You can do it in your home, and it sounds fantastic. You know, and you've been in the business for a long time, so, you know, where's your heart at? Is your heart in the new age of accessibility of recording new music in your home, or do you still like to go to that proper studio and bang it out the old-fashioned way with you and your constituents?
You know, it's a good question, and I think it depends what you're doing and what record you're making. If you are fortunate enough to have a band that is tight and works well together and can go, and you can afford it these days, because real studios are very fucking expensive.
Yeah.
You know, if you're lucky enough, if you're the Foo Fighters and you own your own recording studio, then yes, of course, put the band in the studio like they do and play as a band. There's nothing like it. However, this album that I've just released would not have happened if that was my situation, because I do not have a band. You know, so I think there's an argument for both things. You know, Ozzy was telling me how great it was to do 13 because the band were in the studio together, and there is an argument for that. But I like what I did on my album just as much.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Well, I'm always amazed when you're able to take those songs and put them together in separate rooms, separate places, but then you can take that project on the road. You still have to, get in a room and probably bang them out a little bit to make them road worthy. Can you talk about that with your songs?
Yeah, that's when songs change and morph and grow. I mean, if you listen to the Billy Idol band playing anything, Dancing with Myself, Eyes Without a Face, Rebel Yell, any of the big hits, and then you listen to the recorded version, it sounds nothing like it. It's, things happen when a band gets together. Happy accidents, power. There's a lot of power in a bunch of musicians being in the same room at the same time. So things change, and that's okay. No one wants to go and see a live version of a band playing an album that sounds exactly like the album. You want the power. You want he did that thing there instead of that thing, So I don't know how that translates to my stuff, because there's tentative talks of maybe doing some shows, but who knows, and what band would it be and how would it work? And so I don't have those answers, but I like taking what I've recorded and turning it into something new for live.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I can tell you is that no matter what happens, no, Ozzy is not going on tour with me in a bus just so he can crack cocaine. Yeah. So please don't buy a ticket thinking that Ozzy's showing up.
In this part of your career, how do you view yourself first and foremost? Do you still consider yourself the band member first, or is the solo artist coming more to the forefront, or the songwriter? I guess maybe where does it fall in the order for you in this part of your career?
I think that's really good question. I will never consider myself a solo artist first and foremost. Again, that's very weird, seeing my name in the charts and all the craziness that's going on with this record. I'm honored, I'm grateful, but I think primarily my job, if you want to call music a job, my job is to be a guitar player for Billy. Yeah. That is my job. Extra to that, and because Billy's a superstar, nice guy, I am able to indulge in other aspects of my career, which is putting solo music out, writing songs. I have a lot of songwriting credits that people have no idea about. So, but primarily, no, I go out with Billy Idol, and I'm part of a twin guitar team that is me and Steve Stevens. That's where my focus is.
Yeah, very good.
Let's talk about Steve Stevens. You had him, on your album and in a couple of in your video. Can you talk a little bit more about that dual guitar relationship?
Yeah, Steve changed my game for me. Up until then, I never considered myself a lead guitar player. Clearly, with the Morrison Project, I've demonstrated I am a lead guitar player. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of solos on that album that I'm proud of. So, thanks to Steve, I've gone from being an adequate rhythm guitar player to an all-rounded team player, if you like. And that's a case of you have to. I joined that band, and Steve has done nothing but encourage me, and he'll walk over and he'll say, look, play what I'm playing, but play it a third above. I'm like, dude, you're Steve Stevens. I can't play what you're playing. And he just goes, yes, you can. And he walks away. So I am. And if I want to continue standing on the Billy Idol stage, I need to play that thing. So I do. You know, so by default, he has really been responsible for taking me into a whole new level of being a guitar player. And I'm forever grateful.
We had Steve Stevens on the podcast about 5 years ago, I believe, and he said something to me that really resonated to this day. And he said to us, he said, every morning I wake up, I have a cup of coffee, I stare at my guitar, and I always ask my guitar, what are you going to teach me today? And I found that to be fascinating. Do you still kind of take bits and pieces of what Steve, I guess maybe his philosophy of guitar playing, and try to interject it into your style of play?
Oh, my God, on a daily basis. And I can take that even further, because with the Royal Machines, I've been lucky enough to play with, the world's top 500 guitar players. Name a guitar player. I've stood on a stage with him. And trust me, I'm not trying to outshine him. I'm standing there soaking it in like a sponge and learning. And Steve is absolutely right. What can I do that with singers as well. What can I learn today? I am on a daily basis surrounded by some of the biggest icons in the rock world, from Ozzy downwards, Idol. And I was lucky enough to be in Royal Machines when Scott Weiland was singing with us, and Chester, and all these amazing rock voices and guitar players, Steve Vai, John Five, they're all around me. And I would be an idiot if I didn't shut up and use my eyes and ears and learn.
Well, speaking for that is that being said is you've worked with some of the biggest names in rock and roll throughout your career. On the flip side, I guess, how has that formed you as the artist that you have become?
You guys asked good questions.
Thank you.
I think what it's done for me primarily is taught me a little bit of humility. Not a lot. A fair bit, actually. I'm still a musician, which means I have an ego, which means when I walk on a stage, I'd be a liar if it doesn't feel good that there's 10,000 people screaming and going, oh, yeah, this is great. We love you. However, standing alongside Navarro for 20-odd years, 25 years in Camp Freddy and Royal Machines, standing next to Steve Stevens, watching Steve Vai play, Tony Iommi on the side of the Black Sabbath stage every night for a couple of years, when I was hanging out with them. That has done nothing but taught me a little bit of humility, that these guys are the real deal, and I'm lucky enough to be close enough to see what they're doing, hear what they're doing, and hope that some of that integrates itself into my playing,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think back in 2011, you had a signature Gibson Les Paul. Can you talk a little bit about that? The experience of having your own signature guitar.
Yeah, the main thing with that is when they told me that they wanted to do a signature guitar that said Billy Morrison, I said, you've got the wrong guy. I just couldn't. I thought, maybe they mean Billy Duffy or Billy Gibbons or any one of the other Billies that play rock guitar. Yeah. But clearly, the answer was no. They were very kind. They said your contribution to rhythm guitar, has been nothing short of fantastic, and we think you deserve a signature. And that, when I die, it's really with creativity. It's what you leave behind, and the Morrison Project is an album of 12 songs that I'm honored to leave behind that represent me perfectly. The Gibson guitar will be in those big coffee table books that you see because it happened. The Billy Morrison signature Les Paul. Being a fan of Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, I never thought that would happen. He played a Les Paul, and there now I've got one with my name on it. And again, with my artwork, I'm a painter as well, a
Yeah.
fine art painter, and I get to leave behind, things that maybe affected one or two people in a positive way. That guitar was one of them.
That is so awesome. Bringing this back to the Morrison Project, were there any artists that you really wanted to get on this project that you just couldn't score? Like, hey, this song would be perfect for such and such's voice. Or did you get everybody that you wanted to join in on this fun?
So I can't believe no one's ever asked me that in all the press I've done for this album. And the honest answer is there is one person, and I'm not going to name them, but it's a female vocalist that wanted to do it, but then her record label said no.
Oh, bummer.
So there would have been another track, right? Everyone else, everyone who is on the album said yes straight away, by the way, that no one hummed and hawed. Everyone was like, yeah, send me the song. It shows the level of love and respect that they have for me and I have for them. And then there are a couple of tracks that have guests on that were not on the album that may or may not see the light of day later this year as special tracks.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely held a couple back.
Very good.
Well, yeah, I want to, you alluded to your art. Let's talk a little bit about that for a minute. You're not only a collector, but you became, you're an artist in your own right. Can you talk a little bit about how that, has you been painting for your whole life, or when did that start?
No, the strange thing, I've been collecting art, other people's art since the day I first earned some real money. And I bought an Andy Warhol and I've never looked back. My house is full of it's like a museum. However, you got to understand, I didn't finish school. I left very early, just, told them to go, so, whatever. And I'm not educated and I never went to art school, so I didn't think I could paint. But Ozzy was insistent that I should try it. And one day in Argentina, I went to an art supply store, more than anything just to shut him up, because he was going on about you should paint. And what the feeling was exactly the same as when I first learned to play, a song off Nevermind the Bollocks. It was so cathartic and so creative, and I haven't stopped since. And that was about 12 years ago.
Nice.
And I'm very fortunate in the fact that, not only is it a great outlet for me and my head and my heart, and I get to be creative with no other band members or agents or managers or any of that shit, but also people seem to like it, and it's been very successful. And I'm now people collect my stuff and buy my stuff, which is such an honor.
It is. It's fantastic. Bringing this back to the Morrison Project again, I what fascinates me about this album more than anything else is the transition going from traditional rock songs to industrial rock to more of a heavier sound, maybe a heavier metal sound, and then you
got Run DMC.
Yeah, exactly. I guess talk about a little bit more about the challenges of putting such a diverse sonic sound on one album, going guess all over the spectrum, I guess.
Yeah, and here's the thing, there was no challenge at all. I'm going to go back to your first question. I didn't know I was making a record. Any sensible man who sits down and goes, I'm going to write a cohesive 12-song record would never put those 12 songs together, because they don't go, except they do. And you know what goes is honesty and integrity. And because I didn't know I was making a record, the energy that is in all those songs is pure. I listen to hip hop. I listen to David Bowie piano ballads. I listen to Ministry. I listen to Ozzy. I listen to the Sex Pistols. So all of those punk, I love a good bit of EDM now and again, right? So in that record are metal riffs, punk riffs, EDM sounds, hip hop beats, hip hop rock and roll Hall of Famers, piano ballads. That's because that's my honest soul coming out in the songwriting. Now, the choice to make them all on one album was still based on, nothing's really going to happen. So I may as well just put it all on for me. You know, I'm not doing this for anyone else. Fuck it, I'll just put them all on record. The only reason it's getting questioned now is because the album is a success, and it's a success because I didn't know I was making a record. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I was completely honest in the songwriting and the musical selection and the choices. And then because I'm not a solo artist, I'm just, you know, me, who cares? I'll just put them all on one album, you know? Well, apparently that kind of honesty and eclectic song selection is what people like.
I love it.
I would like this album if someone else put it out, for real.
It's fantastic. Well, you know, The Eyes Have It is my favorite track because I am such a early Ministry junkie. But can you give our listeners a little more insight into collaborating with Al Jourgensen? Because he's such a fascinating individual.
Dude, he's fascinating on so many levels. First of all, one of the most intelligent men I know. Super intelligent, super well-read, well-rounded. He's traveled the world. He's read those books. He's watched those movies. You know, he really is intelligent. And the way he approaches creativity, well, there's a reason that Ministry are one of the most important industrial rock bands ever, you know, because the way he approaches creativity, it's not safe. It's not, you know, and that's why Al is Al and Ministry is Ministry, because he will do stuff that he wants to do. He doesn't go the safe route, you know. And I've been lucky enough to write a few songs with Al. A few of them are on the last couple of Ministry albums. I did the last 2 Ministry album covers at the artwork as well. So, and I've stood on stage with them, and I've done a video with them, and they're one of my favorite bands, you know. And getting to work with him is another sponge situation where I get to watch him and soak up 40-odd years of doing it my way. You know, that's what Al does. He does it his way and fuck everyone else. And it's just so inspiring to be around. You know, I was in the studio when he sang The Eyes Have It, and you know, we went outside and sat by the pool for about 4 hours, and I'm out there thinking, are we going to work? Is anything going to happen? And he was building himself up, and suddenly he stood up. He went, right, let's do it, and it took about 20 minutes.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
You know, just got in front of the mic and killed it, and that's Al's process, which is brilliant.
It is.
I was going to ask you a little bit about your acting career because, you know, besides being an artist and a musician, you also have done some acting. Can you talk a little bit about how you got started with that? And are you still doing it?
Yeah, so here's the thing with acting, and, you know, it's one of the greatest creative mediums for me personally that there is, because being creative is all about, for me, exercising the demons inside me. If I didn't have creativity, I'd be locked up or dead, one of the two, you know. And my past is no big secret, you know. I'm a recovered heroin addict. So creativity is very important for me, and acting affords the ultimate get out of your own head and become someone else, right? However, it's a game that is really difficult to break into, and I don't get to do it enough. I would love to be acting so much more. I really take the craft seriously, and the little bits and pieces and movies and TV that I've done have been some of the most creatively fulfilling experiences of my life. But unfortunately, first of all, you know, Steven Spielberg's not calling me up or knocking on my door, you know. And secondly, I'm kind of busy with a solo career now, a fine art career, and Billy Idol's guitar player. But you would be surprised at how much downtime there's. And it's also about prioritizing. If I got the call for a decent role, and by the way, the only role I wouldn't do is rock star, because it's just cheesy, you know what I mean? There's plenty of other gangsters and vampires and thugs and villains and cops and everything else I can play. if I got a call to do a movie, I have the luxury of prioritizing that. I can say, right, I'm not painting for the next 3 months, and I can do that.
Wow, so cool.
So any budding directors out there that have got some money, call me up.
That's right.
There you go. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Billy Morrison's songwriting vault.
Yeah.
You obviously are an established songwriter. Talk a little bit more about what's in the vault that hasn't been released. Do you release everything that you write, or do you hold back on?
God, no.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh God, no! If I released everything that I wrote, my career would have been over 25 years ago. I'm like anyone else. I write a whole bunch of crap to come out with one good one, and it's interesting. There is a vault. It's called a hard drive, and there is a lot of stuff on there. But as time goes on, I think I've trawled it for all the good stuff. It's funny. I was going back through. I did a track with some other hip hop legends, which I'm not going to name because that is going to come out later this year. It's one of those extra tracks I was telling you about. But my love of hip hop, I got together with these hip hop legends, and I did a track, and I was trawling through the vault looking for. Yeah, I'm not looking for songs. They're never finished, but riffs, a tempo, a key, a riff, or even just a good chorus. And I found one and completely changed it, and we did that song. But in that process, I realized I think the vault is empty of its A-list songs. There's a bunch of crap in there. And no, I just would never go, here's a B-sides collection, because I'm just not a big artist, So, no, maybe it's time to write some more. Let's put it this way. The label have already said, so when are we starting Morrison Project 2?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it looks like I will have to get back to putting some stuff in that vault.
Well, the reason why I asked that question is because we have asked that question to many different artists, and it's fascinating to me because we'll ask that question to an artist like, if I don't use it, I just throw it away. There's nothing. I don't save anything. I was like, whoa, and then we have artists like yourself that say, yeah, I try to hold everything. So fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
You actually, you never know. As we're talking here, I remember 6 songs that I wrote with Steve Stevens and Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. Mm-hmm. They never saw the light of day. They're sitting around on Steve's hard drive and my hard drive. And I spoke to Duff the other day, and he's like, remember when we wrote those songs? There's 6 songs that I'm sure the world would love to hear finished, but probably never will, because we're all kind of busy, Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Well, let's talk about let's go in the Wayback Time Machine. Let's go back to 2006 and Circus Diablo. We've had Brett Scallions and Ricky Warwick on our podcast in the past, and they both spoke highly of working with you in that project. Can you talk a little bit about that project?
Dude, it was absolutely fantastic. Another project that had no expectations. I really believe in just do it, make it. When you're musicians like us, we just want to make music for the sake of making music. And that whole album, another great album, and Ricky and Brett both are wonderful people. And it was just a giggle. It was a laugh that actually did quite well. I mean, Loaded, the single, did really well. And we went on the Ozfest and we had a blast. And I just don't think there's any expectation in stuff like that. Again, we got together, we wrote some songs. Billy Duffy was involved, and ended up with a great album, got a deal, put it out, and went on the Ozfest. And that's the end of that expectation,
Wow.
Yeah.
And what an album it is.
Yes.
I have one last question.
Thank you.
I have one last question for you, then we'll leave you alone for the evening. As the summer is in the forefront of us, what does your schedule look like for the rest of 2024?
Oh, man. Well, right now, I'm very fortunate in that when I'm not on the road, I have plenty to be getting on with. There is, in fact, a movie script that I've got to read this weekend. I am in the middle of there's 2 art shows later on in the year, neither of which are in LA. They're actually in New York. Mm-hmm. So that's two separate art shows that I've got to paint, a bunch of work for. Idol is going across Canada, 5 weeks across Canada. We have another, I don't know whether I can talk about it, but we're going, to another continent to do a big tour later on in the year with Idol. There are at least 4 more videos coming from the Morrison Project, nice. Including two songs that are going to go to radio. I mean, we have to remember, Crack Cocaine is the first song that I've gone to radio with. We're just on song number 1. Mm-hmm. We've got at least 4 more videos, which I guess we call singles, 2 of which are going to go to radio in a big way. So the Morrison Project is going to continue. So, I'm a busy man.
You are.
Very exciting.
Extremely busy. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Not really. I mean, I'm very easy to find. If anyone's interested in the artwork or the solo album or my work with Billy, Google is your friend these days. Yes. None of us are hard to find. And no, you guys covered everything. You're very good at what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, this is how things are going to work out. Once this is ready to go, Jeff, the editing ninja over here, will clean up all my boogers, so it sounds like $1 million. I promise you.
Well, yeah. Welcome to the music business.
Billy, thank you so much for doing this with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for supporting it.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch with Shauna once this is all done. We'll send you guys the link, and please share it wherever you possibly can.
Of course I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Billy. Have a great night.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.
He pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. They roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.